know from my own constituency in Croydon North are really struggling as a result. In conclusion, Madam Deputy Speaker, the measures in this bill are welcome and we will help to ensure its passage. But I want to be clear, this bill only helps at the margins of what will be needed. We are facing a deep recession, possibly the worst for 3 centuries. Millions of people up and down the country fear for their jobs and for their livelihoods. We will need more than this bill to help this country weather the coming storm, but for this evening we welcome the bill and we will support its passage through the House.
Minister, Mr. Chris Pincher.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I first of all, I'm sure on behalf of the whole House, write into the record my appreciation of the maiden speeches of my honourable friends, the member for South Ribble and the member for Sedgefield. The honourable lady, the member for South Ribble, demonstrated some oratorical elasticity in the sense that she was able to draw together Tacitus, Cartimandua and Peter Kay. Historians amongst us recognise and honour that feat, although I suspect that the Whip's office paid greater attention to the fact that she said that she might occasionally prefer to be a rebel. My honourable friend, the member for Sedgefield, paid fulsome tribute to Phil Wilson, a strong and fine member of the opposition Whip's office. She also paid some tribute to the chap that preceded him, I forget his name. He spoke with prose, he gave us some poetry, but whether he speaks in poetry or prose, Madam Deputy Speaker, he will always be welcome in this chamber and perhaps one day even in Trimdon Labour Club. I'd also like to congratulate my honourable friends, the members for Meriden, Kensington, North Devon, for their support for the measures that we're introducing. I shall say some more words about those shortly. Rumsey and Southampton North, I congratulate the entrepreneurial spirit of all at the Rockingham Arms and look forward to her letter to me on nitrates. My honourable friend, the member for Wantage, for Arundel and South Down, and my honourable friend, the member for Thirsk and Moulton, and his support for the bounce back loan, a message I shall pass on to my right honourable friend, the Chancellor. I should also like to thank all honourable members from across the House for this lively and constructive and I think supportive debate, and I'm grateful to the honourable member, the member for North Croydon, for his support for these measures. He is right that occasionally we fling some spice and some ginger across the chamber in our debates, but when it really matters, when the chips are down, we all want the best for our country, and that is why we are coming together to support this bill tonight. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, this bill is good news for our businesses, for jobs, and for everyone looking forward to enjoying a safe summer as we bounce back from an incredibly difficult period. We need to tread carefully. But thanks to the sacrifices and the resolve of the British people and the unprecedented support this government has provided, we are turning a corner and on the road to recovery. And this bill is pivotal to that economic and social recovery. And I'm pleased that the measures it contains to support hard-hit sectors and help businesses adjust to new, safer ways of working have, as I say, been largely welcomed. As my right honourable friend, the Business Secretary, said earlier, we listened to and we worked with a wide variety of stakeholders and experts, and we're delivering on what they told us through this bill. And so I welcome this opportunity to address important issues raised in this debate to ensure the bill gets Britain back to work safely and the power and the prosperity and the opportunities we all want to see is returned to our economic sector. Madam Deputy Speaker, we know that the hospitality industry is raring to go. Our restaurants, our pubs, our bars, want to make the most of summer trading and welcome back their customers. And it's vital we support them to do that safely. As my right honourable friend said, this is the third largest employer in our economy, with the pandemic and social distancing measures having serious consequences for its ability to operate. And that is why the bill will temporarily make it easier for businesses, including restaurants, pubs and bars, to obtain a licence to set up outdoor seating and to sell either food or alcohol or both, with a fast track to get permission for furniture such as tables and chairs on pavements, thereby enabling them to maximise capacity within social distancing guidelines. Now, I understand, Madam Deputy Speaker, that there may be concerns about potential obstruction of highways. And so I want to reassure you and the House that we are taking steps to mitigate this. Recommended minimum footway widths and distances required for those, for example, with impaired vision and mobility will be clearly set out using the Department for Transport's inclusive mobility guidelines, striking a balance between the effective use of space and maintaining traffic and thoroughfare. In addition, we will provide councils with enforcement powers and the ability to revoke licences where conditions are breached. Madam Deputy Speaker, I should emphasise that these changes to outdoor eating and drinking and off sales will be carefully implemented to minimise public nuisance and reduce any crime or disorder. The police already have powers to issue closure notices to a premises in such cases under Section 76 of the Antisocial Behaviour Act 2014. But we're also building in safeguards to this bill, such as an expedited review process for alcohol licences, which allows responsible authorities such as the police to quickly alter the licensing conditions granted to premises if necessary. They will be able to revoke permissions granted. And I will work with my colleagues in the Home Office and the Local Government Association to ensure that these measures work. Madam Deputy Speaker, taken together, these temporary new measures will be a lifeline for our hospitality industry, as are those we're proposing to planning to restart the construction industry and deliver the homes this country still very much needs. I will give way to the honourable gentleman.
Minister, in the contribution that I made, I referred to the temporary events notices for those breweries. Has the Minister had a chance to look at the provisions that they need to ensure that they can continue to prosper and do well after this COVID crisis is over?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the honourable gentleman mentions breweries. He will know that this bill very largely covers England and Wales. It doesn't cover other areas of devolved community. What I can tell him with respect to breweries, however, is that by ensuring that their customers open up and are able to sell alcohol to their customers, we're helping breweries around our country and in Northern Ireland, whether they be big or small. Madam Deputy Speaker, as honourable members have heard, activity is picking up in the construction industry, another sector that's an engine of our economy and that is keen to get Britain building again. And I want particularly to pay tribute to construction workers up and down our country, workers who worked through the pandemic and the businesses that have got their sites back up and running in these very difficult circumstances. I'm pleased to be supporting their efforts through the Safe Working Charter, which was developed by my department with the Home Builders Federation. But we know that there is more to do. Home starts and completions are well down on last year, with planning permissions for at least 60,000 homes hanging in the balance. And that is why we're speeding up the planning system through these temporary measures in this bill as part of a wider reform to ensure it is fit for the 21st century. This means greater flexibility for builders to seek extensions to site working hours to facilitate social distancing, which will support the economic recovery of the sector, the safe economic recovery of the sector. Madam Deputy Speaker, we want work on construction sites to resume swiftly and safely. But I recognise the potential effect of this change on residents at a time when we're all spending more time at home. And I think a number of members, including my honourable friend, the member for Kensington, raised this point. I encourage builders to work constructively with local communities and councils to minimise disruption. And I want to be clear that councils will retain local discretion over the decision-making process. They also have legal duties regarding statutory nuisance, which continue, and they know their areas best, and that is why they will continue to have discretion in their local decision-making process. They are well placed to judge the effect on local businesses and residents, and where there should be an unacceptable impact, they retain the discretion to refuse extended hours. Madam Deputy Speaker, we're also enabling the extension of planning permissions that have or are about to expire since the lockdown began, saving quite literally hundreds of projects. This is at the request of local authorities and the construction sector. I recognise there is risk of schemes being delayed further if existing permissions are extended too long, and that's why this will only be a temporary measure. Our extension date of the 1st of April 2021 strikes the right balance between giving certainty to the sector while ensuring there are no further undue delays to new development. Another significant measure which will help us double the pace of appeals while maintaining fair decision-making is the proposal to enable the Planning Inspectorate to advance appeals using more than one type of procedure. When we tested this hybrid approach last year, we more than halved the appeal time. This change, backed by all parties in the planning system, will be introduced on a permanent basis. Now, it's important in making these changes, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we bring communities with us. And I'm satisfied that by agreeing through the bill to temporarily remove the requirement for copies of the London plan to be made available for inspection at premises and on request, and instead enabling inspection free of charge by electronic means, the interests of transparency and accountability will be served. So, Madam, I will give way to my honourable friend.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm actually very grateful for my honourable friend for clarifying a point that I was raised earlier on in the Secretary of State's speech. But I just wonder if I could just ask just a slightly more detailed point of clarification when it comes to housing developments outside of London, particularly, obviously for my case and my constituency. This process of the public themselves having the opportunity to review any application being made in this bill, what changes might occur to their rights to make representations, if any, on those applications?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I do not believe that this bill does anything to disadvantage anybody in their right to fair access to information. Some of the changes that we have already made allow people to take part in planning committees virtually. Not everybody wants to go down to their town hall at 10 o'clock on a wet February evening. If they can quite literally dial into those planning committees and see what's going on, they have access in a way that they wouldn't ordinarily would. I would make this final point with respect to my honourable friend and the changes that we're making to the PINS processes. This particular proposition was made by Dame Bridget Rosewell as part of her recommendations. It was one of the 22 recommendations that she suggested, and it will allow planning inspectors to use a variety of tools consecutively to speed up their adjudication on decisions, which is good for everybody involved in the process. They've already cut the average time from 47 weeks to 23. We believe that this mechanism will increase the adjudication on planning decisions even more quickly, and that is to the betterment of all involved. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, this bill could not be more important for reopening our economy, for championing firms large and small, for helping people live their lives again with safety still paramount. So let's ensure, as I think all honourable members around the House have said in their contributions, let's ensure its swift passage and get Britain back in business. I commend this bill to the House.
The question is that the bill be now read a second time. As many as that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Under the order of the House of today, we now move to Committee of the Whole House. Order. Order. Before I ask the clerk to read the title of the bill, I should explain that in these exceptional circumstances, although the chair of the committee would normally sit in the clerk's chair during committee stage, in order to comply with social distancing requirements, I will remain in the Speaker's chair, although I will be carrying out the role not of Deputy Speaker, but of Chairman of the committee. And the occupant of the chair during the committee should be addressed as the chair of the committee rather than as Deputy Speaker.
Business and Planning Bill.
We will start with Amendment 2 to Clause 1, with which it will be convenient to take all the other clauses stand part, including the selected amendment and the selected new clauses. I call Mike Amesbury to move Amendment 2.
Thank you, Chairman. I beg to move Amendment 2 in the names of myself and my honourable and right honourable friends. I speak also to the other amendment and selected clauses in our names. The Government is asking Parliament to expedite the parliamentary progress of this bill, and in everyday circumstances, a fast track of this pace will be subject to a lower gear of progress. We are not in ordinary times or everyday circumstances, and the opposition recognise and have indeed constructively argued that many of the measures outlined in the Business and Planning Bill need to be in place for the summer recess in order for them to be effective. If legislation is not passed in time, hospitality businesses and their customers will not be able to benefit from the flexibility and COVID safety arrangement measures on outdoor seating and alcohol service over the coming months. Likewise, road hauliers and others dependent on HGV, PCV testing and licensing and construction projects may be paused or delayed without extending planning permissions. Furthermore, the measures will facilitate bounce-back loans by disapplying unfair relationship provisions in the Consumer Credit Act 1974. Chairman, our position on this bill is one of constructive engagement to provide support for hard-pressed businesses while giving additional freedoms and flexibility to respond to COVID-19 spatial requirements. While the additional freedoms will be welcomed by many, I ask the Minister for assurance that checks and balances